Philadelphia police officers now still facing that backlash.
If the power is with the people, then these types of things won't keep occurring over and over and over.
How's everybody doing today? Malcom Jenkins, safety for the Philadelphia Eagles, also co-founder of the Players Coalition. I appreciate everybody for joining us this evening. In 1947, in the midst of great racial unrest in the country, Langston Hughes wrote the poem, "Who But the Lord?" And in the final words of that poem, he said, "Being poor and black, I have no weapon to strike back, but who but the Lord can protect me?" Here we are in 2019, still looking for ways to fight back. But what we do know is that we can use our voices and our votes. And so the purpose of tonight is to allow the community to be heard and to make sure that what we want gets out to the mayor, and we see the changes that we want to see in policing here in Philadelphia. We're at a critical juncture here in Philadelphia. There's no question that trust between our police department and our communities is frayed. Just last week, a top police commander was indicted for sexually assaulting people who work for him. Over 300 police officers made racist and sexist social media posts. Officers have been accused of corruption and have committed acts of serious abuse. Black people are stopped and searched far more than anyone else in the city. And meanwhile, the majority of cases involving gun violence remain unsolved. This is not a knock or an indictment on the entire department. We all know that there are tons of officers that want to make our communities safer. But the next police commissioner that is appointed by the mayor will need to transform the culture of the police department in order to gain the trust of the community. So today we'll hear from a variety of speakers that will weigh in on what we think Philadelphia needs to change in its policing practices. And in between each panel, we'll open up to questions from the audience to get your voices heard. Even if we don't get to your question, make sure that you continue to ask on social media and continue to use your voice. You can hashtag #HearPhillySpeak. And we'll make sure that we get all of your questions and concerns directly to the mayor. Mayor Kennedy wishes he could be here today, but unfortunately had a previous engagement out of town. So I hope you enjoy the evening, and thank you for being here. So this first panel, my first two guests, really don't need an introduction, but I'll try anyway. We have Reverend Leslie Callahan, the first female pastor at the 119-year-old St. Paul's Baptist Church in North Philadelphia, and a leader here in the fight for police reform. And we also have Meek Mill, hip-hop recording artist and criminal justice reform advocate. All right, so the first question I'll pose to Reverend Callahan. You're a leader of the coalition fighting for an accountable police commissioner in Philadelphia. Can you take us through some of the bigger issues? What do you think the biggest issues are when it comes to policing in Philadelphia right now?
Hi, everybody. Let me say a word of thanks for the invitation. From Players Coalition and from you, Malcolm. I am here as a representative of a faith-based grassroots organizing group that is interfaith and that is concerned about how our next police commissioner interacts with people in the community. You've already laid out all of the issues that are of concern to us. We're concerned with the way that policing still operates in an unconstitutional fashion as it relates to stop and frisk. We're concerned about the way that the diversion of interest and human power to stop people who are minding their own business means that that same human power is not available to actually solve crime. We're concerned about the relationship between the police and the neighborhood, particularly when they make an error, and the ways in which the top brass is frequently unaccountable. And if the people at the top, including whoever the future commissioner is, if they are unaccountable, then the people who do the policing on the streets are also going to be unaccountable. And we see this not only as a civic and a policy issue, we see it as a moral issue. Justice for all of our faith traditions is at the center. And policing in the United States has never been just. It's always been inadequately taking care of the people who were supposed to be protected and served, and too often targeting people based on color and class. And so we feel like we have a moral obligation to call upon the mayor when he considers who to appoint to the position of commissioner, to appoint someone who is actually going to be more committed to justice, more committed to protecting and serving the public in ways that are demonstrable, that are based on 21st century policing strategies that do justice.
Yeah, I think that people ask me the same thing. What's the number one thing you want to see change? And it's hard to point out one thing. I think what we want to see is a commissioner that comes in with the idea that there needs to be a radical change in the culture of policing in Philadelphia. It's not just one practice or training or this. It's a complete culture shift. And I think that's one thing that's why we're here, is to learn about these different things and obviously push that directly to the mayor. But Meek, do you have anything to add to that? If you had, what's the main thing you want to see change around policing?
Me, I don't have a solution to it. I would say just an understanding of our community and what's going on. Really, I think sometimes they have people policing our communities that have no understanding of what's going on in communities. You might see 4 guys standing on a step. Like, it was times, me, I've been out of these type of environments probably for the last 10 years, out of it fully. But, I come back and visit my family. When I was in it, it used to be sometimes they could pull up on you and tell you move off your own step, and we was the influential people in my block. Or it could be so many. It's so many different levels to address it. If you look at it, you have a lot of gun violence in Philadelphia. If I was to come out of what I was doing as a rapper and came back to Philadelphia and was sitting around these kids and going back and forth with them and trying to bring a solution to their problems, 9 times out of 10, I'd probably be tied up in a gang affiliation for trying to help and use my voice and help out. So the best thing I would do is stay far, because we don't have an understanding of what you can do. If you're a guy that just came home from prison and you want to give back to your community and you want to give back to society, you don't even know how close you could be to these guys and help out with a situation. So I would say, like, an understanding of our community and there's so many different levels. I can't even put it in one word.
Yeah.
If I tried to do that, I wouldn't be making sense right now.
So one of the things that I think is interesting about your case in particular is I think everybody's familiar with, and you've really taken on the idea of parole and community supervision as kind of the center point of your advocacy, and everybody's familiar with your story and the technical violations that allow them to keep you incarcerated or under supervision for forever, it seems like. But the other side of the coin that we don't talk about as much, or people don't know as much, is how the police played a role in your case in the abuse and misconduct, not only physical, but also throughout testimony. So can you elaborate just kind of on that side of your story?
I always tell people, I always say it's different layers to it. Like, even if you've seen my documentary or if you hear me speak on my case, you might hear me speak about my face in a mugshot for 30 seconds. But it's a big deal to be beat by police officers. But in my world, it wasn't a big deal. So, you might hear me talk about the story. My face got stitches, next. But a cop lied and said I pointed a gun at him. So, now that situation of me getting beat down and knocked unconscious is small compared to what I have to talk about now. I'm fighting for my life, my freedom. A cop said I pointed a gun at him. I was knocked out a bunch of times. I'm cased up. I don't have any lawyer money, and that was my future. The rest of my life, I was caught up in the system, and I was grateful enough to have a drive to push me through, but along the way, I was in the prisons and in probation offices and jails with other guys who wasn't strong enough that I know would be trapped inside the system forever. Me, I know this is a conversation between like the community and police, but me, I try to like narrow it down to everything in one, because the system is like a big monster, and you know it has is so many different layers to it, and you can't address all at one time. So you know I try to address the system at one, because it's so many different layers. And me, myself, I wanted to use my situation and take it and turn it into a platform where I could give people, use my story to shed light. And, you know, like when I tell my story, it's always, I was beat up by the cops 5 seconds and go right past that. No, we take it back and we want to know why did that happen. And me, I can't even make it a race issue. It was actually all African-American cops that put their hands on me, myself. And me, I would want to get an understanding of why things like that happen. Why, I actually did get locked up with a firearm in this room. That was my situation. That was the environment I'm in. If you're from Philadelphia, you live in it every day, not Center City, but the outskirts of Philadelphia. We just had 4 kids shot in this area in the last month. I made up my mind as an 18-year-old. I decided to carry a firearm. But carrying a firearm led me to 36 charges, and the only thing I did was carry a firearm. And me, I always, in the back of my mind, wanted to get a grip on how a kid could go in for 1 charge and leave out with 45 charges. You understand?
Yeah. And I think, and I'd ask Reverend Callahan, do you think situations like Meek's are isolated, or these are a couple bad actors, or are these symptoms of a larger, more widespread issue?
I don't know how you could have that many coincidences. I just don't. Here's the challenge from my perspective for people who say, a few bad apples, a few bad actors, is that you could close your eyes and put your finger on any city. Quite frankly, it didn't even have to be a large city like Philadelphia. You could put your finger on any city in the United States, any police department in the United States. At some point, the apples are growing on a tree. And at some point, it's got to be, we have to look at what's going on with the tree. I think it was Jesus who said that you can tell a tree by its fruit. And so I know it was Jesus. I was just, but so at some point, if you keep seeing this fruit and there are these consistent tendencies, then we have to begin to look at what's going on with the tree. And on top of that, it's a systemic problem. We're watching the news, and every day we're seeing criminality at the highest levels of the United States government, right in our faces. Yeah, I did it. It's illegal. Yeah, I did it. And people keep moving. And yet, the situation you describe, you got 1 legit charge, but it's like compounding charges. It's exactly the opposite. It's upside down. And I'm with you. I don't know exactly what we do about it. I don't know entirely what we do about it. But I'm becoming more and more persuaded that the very idea of what's legal and what's not is itself tainted. That's the bad tree. And policing is part of it. And the courts are part of it. And the society is part of it. We're all implicated. Like anybody does anything, we're like, they should go to jail. Like, okay. Like, we want our little kids to do stuff, and we're taking our kids to get scared straight. Traumatizing them. They're little kids. So I think it's a tree problem.
Can I say one thing too? If I threw a show, 10 shows this year, and 10 kids got shot at my show this year, even if I didn't have nothing to do with that show personally, I think I would be held accountable for that show. And not saying all cops are bad cops, but in anything you have bad. And yeah, no, I don't think all cops are bad cops. You gotta, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. I got family that's cops that's honorable, that do their job and go home. Actually, some security work for me. It's cities we go in where some people can't carry firearms, so we had to hire off-duty police officers. And we do background checks and character checks and find out what you're about. But everybody not good at anything. All rappers are not good. I'm not an angel myself. I've never been an angel. I've never been labeled as an angel. I'm a person with good morals. I'm a good soul. I don't want to kill a cop. I never had that type of mind frame to pull a gun out or point a gun at a police officer, even though I had to wear that all them years, being found guilty of that. And I just think accountability. If people was getting shot at my shows, and every time I go to that show and it had nothing to do with me, I would still be a part of the cause why people are getting shot at these shows and losing their lives.
Yeah, no doubt. I think I think we all alluded to this being a little bit bigger than just the police. It's a whole systemic issue, right? It's the criminal justice system, the courts, the police. But I think when we look at the system, the police are the front line of that. That's the first encounter that is going to take us. They're the gateway into the system, and then it's a cycle from there. And so when you look at the relationship between our communities and police, that's really, like I said, that entryway into how the state interacts with the community. And so we look at some of the posts and tweets that officers made. We had 300 officers make different quotes. I'm not sure what they have behind us right now, but what did you think of?
Can I tell you, that's what it looked like when I tell you about somebody carrying a firearm. That's what violence looked like when you live in one of those type areas. So it's even more than just the police. People actually are doing those killings. There's so many layers to what we got to do just as people and as a culture just to take a step up. Even me, I love talking about these situations, but I just be like, what's next after talking? Like, if I go outside and get pulled over in a tenant car, will I be safe after having this conversation, or would it matter? And I probably would be safe because I'm a rapper and I'm Meek Mill, and people know I have a foundation, but the normal black kid riding down the street, will he be safe during a pullover? No. I never felt safe during a pullover. I've been getting pulled over in Philadelphia my whole life. If you come from one of the urban communities here, if you feel unsafe being pulled over by a police car, could you raise your hand? Right here. And don't raise your hand just to raise your hand. Like, you have to really truly feel that in your heart. And me, I don't raise my hand no more. When I'm in Philadelphia now, I get pulled over. Police know who I am, and I'm not committing any crime. But they know me by face now, and they can identify me. And I don't feel that fear anymore because I feel like I had a foundation and I'm valued at that level. But up till the further years of my life, I never felt that value coming up as a black man in America. I never felt that value. And I may not have ran across that police officer, but I never felt that in my heart since I have been growing up in the streets of Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, I think history, part of it is, we know our own history, regardless of what is put on TV or what is shown, we know the history between black communities or communities of color and the police. We grow up, I remember my mom talking to me about going out and her being concerned and staying up until I walked back in the door because she don't know what can happen. And it wasn't necessarily the environments that she was worried about. It was more so having interactions with the police. Yeah. And I think when we start to look at how we change or start to go about changing those things, I think this is a great opportunity, which is why we're all here. And we want you to, like you said, how do we go beyond just these conversations about policing? Because we all know what we feel when we get pulled over or when we see images of police brutality, all these things. But forums like tonight, we want you to participate and to make sure when opportunities like this happen, when the police commissioner steps down, and the mayor saying he wants to hear from the public on what they want in a new commissioner, this is the time where we need to use our voices the loudest and make sure that we hold him accountable to what we want, and that this new person is somebody who's going to come in and make a cultural shift, because you have these instances. So back to the social media things, what were your thoughts when you saw that report come out, and do you feel like the response was strong enough?
So I will say that my own personal response to it was, if there are this many people who are doing this basically in public, how many people are smarter than to put it on their own social media, right? So on the one hand, I mean, it was a lot of people. But for me, it was more like, whoa, if you got this many people who are willing to say it in a basically public forum, how many more people are sort of saying it to one another and not necessarily in that forum? That's worrisome to me. The other worry that I have is about driving it underground where we can't see it.
Right.
You know, one of the things I want to say, I think that's related to this is that one of the benefits of being in grassroots organizing is that you can make connections with people not only across the city, across the state, but across the nation. And there are folks who are there are lots of people who are trying to think about what are the processes that would allow us to have better policing. And in fact, I talked to a brother named Mike McBride, who's from Oakland, and one of the things that they've been talking about is focusing on hiring. What are the criteria for who gets hired into the force? Equipment, like why are all these police forces, why do they have tanks in the city streets? What's happening with body cams? Everybody wants to talk about accountability. Citizen review boards that actually have some teeth, that have to be listened to, so that some accountability happens and the police are not policing themselves all of the time. And then finally training for people who are already in the force as a first line of disciplinary action for minor infractions. But also to try to, like, can we get ahead of some of this? Too much of the time we're trying to catch up after some terrible thing has already happened. Is there a way for people who aren't trying to be bad actors? Is there a way to get to them? Because I think we can acknowledge, I agree with you that like on an individual basis, a person can be a good person. But if you bring a person who's a good person into a bad culture, then what happens is that person, as they try to be a good person, they get punished in that bad culture. They pay the price in that bad culture. And so it doesn't, we have to figure out how to get ahead of it to change the culture. So at least we can test this theory about there are good people who are just trying to do a good thing.
Like and I would like to shout out the one person I said I never felt that. It was a police officer in my hood, Tyrone Crowley. Basically, he used to run the power center in my hood, and everybody in my neighborhood had a relationship with him. It wasn't nothing that he couldn't walk outside them doors and do, from the guys on the corner to the people, the old ladies on their steps. He basically had his hand on anything he wanted to in my neighborhood. He could touch anything. He could make anything stop or go in my neighborhood because he had an understanding of what was going on in my neighborhood. My father was dead since I was 5 years old. A lot of the kids in there their fathers been gone their whole lives. We had a power center. We had a place to go from 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night. Miss Ruth is right here. Shout out to Miss Ruth. She one of the people. I was in her program probably from 3rd grade to 6th grade. I had somewhere to go. Now I ain't been back. I'm not that, I don't know what type of programs they have deep in our neighborhoods, but, you know, yeah, and we'll help your program too. I see your program. You're always doing it. We'll make sure we hold you down too. But we ain't have that. Nobody don't have that. And, you know, we had a cop in our neighborhood that could relate to us, that built with us, that ain't sent us to jail for any single thing. You do wrong, you get wrong. If you play right, you get right. You know what I'm saying? If you're a criminal, you know jail come along with that. If you're not, you know, you might still land in jail sometimes, but you know, you should get your way. And that was just an example. Basically, if anybody from the North Philly area, Birch, Caesar B. Moore, you know Tyrone Crowley. And if you came to him for anything, he had his hands so deep in my neighborhood. He was like a father figure to some of the kids, you know. And I think programs and the understanding and we have a job to do ourselves to bridge this gap and just make it work.
No, I think that's a good point, or a great example of like how it can work. But the next question, I guess, would be: do you think that when there's so much distrust between the community and the police department, or there's this kind of reputation for a department, do you think that that has an effect on public safety? Like, for instance, they showed that map and we're talking about how gun violence and homicides are on a rise right now in Philadelphia. That's where we want the focus, for our officers to be on. We want them to be able to solve those, but they're only doing that they only make an arrest about 44% of the time.
But if I was in Philly, if I came back to Philly and I had to live in a bad environment where a lot of violence was happening, and this is not my situation, and you got people being killed around my way every day, I would think criminal to get a firearm, because I would think to protect myself because my neighborhood not safe. If I don't think I could walk to the store without being killed, because 10 people was killed in my neighborhood in the last 2 weeks, it's not safe. So criminality, the crime rate will go up. It's not safe in the area. If I don't think I could walk 10 steps without losing my life, you don't think I might pull this trigger a little fast and shoot a little kid or shoot somebody scared for my life because this area is not safe. It's going to be a lot of violence. There's going to be a lot of things happening because these things not safe. If I was in Miami and it was time to go to the club tonight, I would go to the club. A rapper job is dangerous. We lose our lives, we get shot at. I would go to the club. But now you tell me that I want to go to the club here, you know why? 9 times out of 10 I wouldn't go. When you come outside, it ain't no police outside. So what we got to turn to? Our friends that got gun license. You got to survive just to stay alive. So if it ain't safe, I have money. I got resources. I got a backing. So I don't have to resort to criminality. But I know I come from that life. I'm not that far away. I know a person. If you don't feel like you're safe and you living in a place, this is what it's going to be. So I think we're going to have to. Understanding. Y'all know the hot zones where I be out of town 9 months out of the year. I know where they shooting at in Philly every day. I know what blocks don't ride down with no tinted windows. I know where the crime area is at. So, we got to get an understanding and I think come together and really put this thing to the forefront. Because, I see a lot. We got like 2-year-old girls and stuff getting shot in the head. If the cops, we come from, every place has a code. The union got a code, police got a code, the streets has a code. If you don't want the police to handle it, who gonna handle these guys shooting little girls in the head around our way? Somebody gonna do something about it or make these guys move out of our neighborhood? So it has to be some type of bridge that gotta be gapped amongst whatever our communities built and the relationship between the police. It gotta be bridged. If it's not gonna bridge, it'll forever be separated, and I don't think anything could be done about it until both sides step up. And we here, we talking today, we ready to step up. I don't know any police officers in the building today, but after this I hope we could just build and make things work. Because I would love to hang on my grandma's block and sit on my grandma's step, but I don't think that's the safe thing for me to do. If I sit on my grandma's step, I think it would have to be a secure firearm there for me myself, you know what I'm saying? But I would love to. So there's so many ways you could go about it.
Yeah, and finally, this will be the last question. But like you said, I think for any of these things to happen, there has to be some positive dialogue, but also some real accountability, because the police can't do their jobs. We want them to help us keep our community safe, but we can't trust them if there's, the reputation that they have or their.
Yeah, and it's 2 ways. When I'm talking about like me having a firearm, I want to have a firearm to protect my life. It ain't even really for the cops. It's for my own neighborhood. So it's like really a 2-way street to go about this. And I think just Philly, because I travel the world a lot, and I watch cultures of I watch Atlanta. You go to Atlanta, they have a lot of black police. Like when you get pulled over by police, you feel like you can identify to some level. You feel a little bit safe, you know what I'm saying? You look like someone that look like you. If you get pulled over 3 o'clock in the morning and all your life you've been hearing police has been racist, and you might not never experience that, but if that's what's been in your mind and that's what you've been seeing all your life, you get pulled over 3 o'clock in the neighborhood. Myself, I don't even want to pull over tonight. I don't even want any contact because I don't know what you can do. I got pulled over on 12th and Girard. This is a fact coming from 106 and Park in New York. It was a Sandy. My album dropped 2012, October 23rd. That was the week of the Sandy hurricane, so I could not fly out of New York. I was on probation. I had to drive back to Philadelphia to fly private. I got pulled over on 12th and 12th and Girard. Actually, had a off-duty police officer in my car because you can't carry a firearm in New York. And since we here, I gotta break it down because, you know, rappers give it to you all types of ways. They say you shouldn't have security, you shouldn't. It's almost like a suicide mission. So I always look at it like, should I have my friend, in an ignorant way of thinking how we deliver it sometimes, should I have my friend drive to New York to protect me with a gun when I could hire somebody for $200 to protect me all day the legit way? Which way should I do it? So I did it the legit way, rode back to Philly. I get pulled over by a police officer. He smelled weed in the car. He don't know it's a cop in his car yet. I don't smoke weed, I'm on probation. I never had a technical violation for weed the 10 years I've been on probation. I just got off probation. I tried my thing, I relax here and there now. He pulled me out the car. More of the story, I went to jail. I lost my money. I lost my money for my plane. I'm trying to do right. I'm trying to do good. I got pulled back. And me, I would never sue the police. I lost $400,000. I lost probably $200,000 for the show, probably $800,000 a lawsuit, a bunch of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I wanted my money back. He pulled me over, locked me up, let me go. I didn't get charged. I went to court. He said he seen heroin in the back of my car. These are factual documents you could go pull up off the internet. He said it looked like he seen racks of heroin in my car. At this time, I'm making millions of dollars. I ended up losing a lawsuit, and I got violated. I went to jail, ended up losing a bunch of money, my family, my freedom, and just from one person pulling me over. And that's just giving you the breakdown of a mind frame. Like, 9 times out of 10, most of these kids don't even want to stop because they don't know your life can turn around in the matter of a pullover, you know what I'm saying? And luckily, I have resources and I have lawyer money and I have a backing that I could come out of that situation. But, you know, you got thousands of others that don't. And I think we need to address that soon.
No doubt. I think people sometimes take for granted the actual impact or how much power officers has, and how easy it is to just derail, you know, your life. And, you know, I think that's a great example. I think we're going to move to a few questions from the audience, if we have some. How are we doing that? I'm guessing you're going to go to the mics. We got 2 mics right here.
Get right behind me, Helen.
Hi there. My name is Hannah Sassaman. I'm a community organizer with a group in Philly called the Media Mobilizing Project, which has been focusing on criminal justice and technology for a few years. The question that I have is, we've been seeing massive abuse covered up both inside the department with the stories that have been coming out, as well as a lot of complaints out in our neighborhood, not even rising up to the level where internal affairs or arbitration is taking care of it. So my question for you, maybe this is for Dr. Callahan, although I'd love to hear what anyone on the panel has to say, is what should we demand that the next police commissioner concretely do to fix the broken system where police are supposed to hold each other accountable?
That's actually the thing I was thinking about as you were talking just then. Part of the challenge, I think, in terms of so there's a challenge of accountability, and then there's the PR challenge that comes from the fact that, from the perspective of the FOP, it's like nothing ever happens that was wrong, and it's hard to have any confidence that they even care about bad actions on the part of officers, given that no matter how egregious, and again, close your eyes and put your finger on any point in any space in the United States, certainly true here in Philadelphia, there's nothing almost that, I've never heard them say that was a bad shoot. They never admit that they do anything wrong, and it's hard to have any confidence. Which brings me to the challenge that the police commissioner is going to have. The police commissioner is going to have a challenge that's related to the contract and to the way that arbitration happens by contract with the FOP. So I think one of the things, and I don't know the intricacies of this, exactly how you get it done, but one of the things that I think we've got to focus on is how to make sure the contract doesn't keep. There are times when the police commissioner has tried to fire people who've gotten their job back via arbitration. Lots of times when that happens. And so part of what I think, and I think that's it's in the public interest to bring pressure to bear in the various places, including in Harrisburg, to make sure that we don't end up in the next set of contract negotiations with a contract that makes it impossible to hold police accountable.
We'll take a question over here.
All right. Hello, I'm Michaela Brown. I'm 16 years old, and I attend Bodine High School. Today I'm here with my program, NOMO. So my first question is, we talked a lot about how the system is a big monster. You also talked about accountability. But if the system is a big monster, like, how can we really change that? And you talked about accountability and how they need to be held accountable, correct? But they are being held accountable considering the fact that we have in conferences like this. They are being held accountable due to the fact that they're also going into the court system. But being held accountable doesn't mean that they're actually taking action after that, because they're being let off free and they're letting go. So what can we do to really challenge that?
Yeah.
I don't know. What I would say is like, I don't mean like me. Like when I come speak on panels, I use my experiences to like deliver messages to inform people if you don't come from this walk of life. So I don't have like, I would be up here lying if I tell you what is the solution for the cops to do to stop violence and make the relationship with our community better. I don't know, but. All I could say is we gotta fight. Like me, I was caught up in this situation. We built our organization. I'm on probation now. I still got a lot of work to do. I got a lot of flights to go. I got a lot of cities to touch. I got a lot of panels to speak at, and I gotta step up myself to keep our foundation pushing. And the moment I stop, the moment that I wouldn't be a part of that, I'm pretty sure Mike can only keep it going. But I would say step up. All of us have to step up. Me in my position, I got to step up. So I think we all do.
I think to add on to that, I think the biggest thing for us to do is put pressure on those who have the power to actually implement these changes, right? Because you have other powers that be like the FOP that fight against every change you try to put in. And so we talk about accountability. The FOP is a big part of that, and getting people in high levels of authority to actually go against the grain. So I think getting Larry Krasner as the DA was a big jump in that direction. But in some of the things that he's trying to implement, the FOP is fighting against it. And so it's up to us to put pressure on the mayor, to put pressure on whoever this next candidate is for, or this next commissioner for police is, to make sure that they are at least fighting back against those powers that are not in the best interest of the public.
And I hear what you're saying, but I'm sorry.
All right, I think we're going to get to it because we got like 2 minutes left.
Right, yeah.
So I'm going to get to this next question over here.
You trying to go hard, huh?
Our chance to be heard, not to listen to millionaires and people of privilege who aren't going to
Whoa, okay. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So.
Okay. We're going to get this question.
Okay.
You got it, brother.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask my question. Y'all going to be quiet. So my name is Devin Washington. I am an organizer with Black Lives Matter Philadelphia and also the Philadelphia Community Bail Fund. And my question is, or my comment is, I'm wondering why we are starting from the premise that we don't know really what to do, what our path is forward. I think the ACLU was integral in helping to quantify the harms that are caused by the Philadelphia Police Department, along with the DOJ. There's many cops reports on what the police department needs to do to reform its practices. So I'm wondering, like, as we are advocating on a public space and public forum, why is it that we aren't talking more about what the courts and what the DOJ has found that the police department needs to do in order for it to fix a lot of its issues?
Good question.
That's a great question. I think a lot of those topics and issues are going to be hit on some of our later panels. we're just starting the discussion, obviously just kind of laying the groundwork of what obviously some of the issues are pertaining to the police in our community.
Yeah.
We got time for one more question.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. I'm Helen Gims, City Council member, Chair of Children and Youth, and I just wanted, first of all, to thank both of you, especially...
That's why we're in the position that we're in, because everybody wants to kiss the asses of people who have more money than us. She gets to ask her questions every Thursday in City Council. She's a council person. We never get a voice.
Come on, man.
Thank you.
You got it.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to, first of all, acknowledge all the young people in the audience, especially young people as young as elementary school and the high school students who are here. And my question is for them, because I want to ask Meek and Reverend Callahan, thank you so much. But can you talk to me about how the next police commissioner has to change the school-to-prison pipeline? They have to divert away from the over-arrests and the charges that are happening to young people. And we've got a bill moving through the state legislature right now that gives arresting powers to the school police, which we cannot allow to go through. But we need the next police commissioner to talk about how to end the arrests and overcharging of young people. And I think both of you could speak to that. And Reverend Callahan, if you can just talk about moving towards a transformative environment, restorative justice, and stop punishing young people in need. Young people need to be cared for, but if you could do that, that would be great. Thank you.
That was a good question. At one time, somebody I knew asked me, I think it was Michael Rubin asked me what was my first arrest. My first arrest was actually going to school on the day I was suspended. If you go to school on a day you're suspended without telling your parents, that'll be a start of me and my friends, that was the start of our criminal history of trespassing, going to school on the day that you were suspended. So, that was just the beginning of my criminal history. And the next was the case I caught. I talked about the cops that I pointed a firearm at them.
She said it. I mean, I think that I actually was trying to point to that kind of issue when I talked about kind of our reaction. Our reaction to anything is incarceration or arrest them, put them in jail. We do start with children. That's exactly what I'm talking about. We do need more creative ways. And there are people who do this. That goes back to another thing that I said in my introductory remarks about 21st century ways of dealing with conflict. And there are diverse ways that have to do with more physical activity, meditation, other ways of dealing with conflict in communities, beginning with childhood. But it seems like our automatic response to anything, when anything goes wrong, our automatic response is, let's find a way to take them out of the school, let's find a way to lock them up, let's find a way to shove people out of our sight, rather than doing the harder work of finding ways to attend to issues of poverty, to attend to the issues that precede the behavior that we want to divert. So, I mean, you said it yourself. I agree with you, Councilwoman.
And to the guy previously, he spoke on the DOJ, even the juveniles, I seen something where the juveniles was getting beat, at Satan Games and things like that. Me coming up as a kid, 17, 16 years old, most of my friends was in juvenile detention centers. They were taking kids from neighborhoods and just shipping them to the suburbs with people, some of them, not all of them was racist, some of them people, they told me it was probably a 70-30 ratio of bad people, staff, but they raising our kids. You raising our kids in Camp Hill and things like that. It will never be a connection with us, you know what I'm saying? You have someone else taking our kids to the mountains and raising our kids at 16 years old and then putting them back into a ruthless environment. I don't know what type of problem fixing that is. I never seen it, and that was my life coming up. And I think me, now that I make money, I always ask Michael Rubin, I'm like, how can we get a hold of a juvenile detention center? How can we get a hold of a prison to help our people? Because we got our people going into places that do us no service.
All right, so we're gonna, appreciate that. We're gonna keep diving into
You want? Oh, okay. Oh no, we got one more. One more question.
You ready to
There we
get
go.
this question
There you
on,
go.
big?
You ready to be heard?
Okay. Well, anyway, I apologize for people holding up, but when I'm in here with people whose lives depend on having these conversations and being able to ask their questions, and we're always ignored and we're always overlooked and everything is crumbling around us, then that's just how I feel like I have to disrupt, because we never get a voice. Why would a council person come and stand in front of the people who are affected by these issues and take a question? My question is for Reverend Callahan. Reverend Callahan is on the Philadelphia Housing Authority Board of Commissioners, and she has continuously ignored brutality, excessive force, and the misuse of PHA's private police force, who is mocking the Philadelphia police in vehicle and uniform style and engaging in patterns of Fourth Amendment violations, though they are private security guards with the powers of police in and on the grounds in the buildings of the Housing Authority. And I'm coming there month after month. Reverend Callahan has remained silent when PHA police murdered John Dawkins, the son of the owner of the first black-owned McDonald's in Philadelphia, his son. And multiple people come in time after time, and Ms. Callahan has said a lot of stuff about police accountability, but you sit back and you ignore the abuses of the Philadelphia Housing Authority police, who only target poor, mostly poor and minority populations in PHA. So I wanted to know if you're willing to bring some of your ideas about the Philadelphia police and use your position on the Philadelphia Housing Authority Board of Commissioners to get this same kind of accountability for this private police force that's completely unaccountable to anybody.
So, I am a commissioner on the Housing Authority. I am not authorized, however, to speak for the Housing Authority. What I will say is that the policing and the Housing Authority gets adjudicated. The case that she brought up got adjudicated in court, and it got adjudicated in court, and there were lawyers for the various parties, and there was a process of adjudication that I don't have anything to do with.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we get out of here, too, look, I always, I pay a lot of attention to media and things like that. I always try to use my platform to, like, put certain stories out there. What I could say is just me personally, from experience coming from actually poverty and making it to where I'm at now, just halfway along the way, I say value yourself. I always say this. I posted this the other day. You had 4 little kids get shot here last week. It ain't making national news. They don't care. If they don't care, we have to care first. We got to take care of ourselves first. That's how I look at it. I hold 4 babies getting shot to the same level of a guy running a school shooting up kids. It's the same level. People are losing lives. Philadelphia, in Philadelphia, you probably got 7 people who die a week. It's still 7 lives lost in a week. It's still mass murdering going on. It's not being viewed and valued, like our lives are not being valued to that level. So, I think we got to take a step our own self and, go a little overboard and value ourselves. Me now, a cop pulled me over 5 years ago, hands on the steering wheel, all lights on. I was scared to death. Now I pull over, officer, I ain't do nothing. What did I do? Can you tell me what I did? I value myself, and they can feel and see when they talk to me, I value myself, and like I have a foundation. I don't know how to explain it, but, for our people, value ourselves, protect one of each other, you know what I'm saying? In our neighborhood, like, self-hate is like a big deal. When we talking about 300-400 murders a year, black-on-black crime, that's a real big deal. You know what I'm saying? If we from this area and we don't want to come outside without no guns, it's like something we gonna have to do on our end, and then after we do that, we're going to address them in the strongest way. They will have to value us to the level that we need to be valued on if we approach it that way. I just truly believe that. That's my way. That might not be everybody else's system. That's just how I feel deep side of my heart, because I value myself. I remember I thought being beat up by a cop was normal. A cop lying on you was normal, because that was my everyday reality. I explained that to my friend. He a billionaire. He come from a suburban world. He don't understand. You could say something to him, but you wouldn't understand the effects unless you see it or lived it. And I used to always say, like, yo, you think I point a gun at a cop? You think I would be chilling here with you, this team owner, if I pointed a gun at a cop? You think I would be sitting here on this table if this whole room thought, on this panel, if they thought I pointed a gun at a police officer? No, that wouldn't be the case. So, value, I think, is a big part of it. And, you know, we got to learn more. We got to make people aware of our lifestyle, where we come from. Me, 9 times out of 10, when I get on these panels, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm here to make people aware of the ruthless lifestyle that we come from, an unfair lifestyle, because I am a celebrity and they may listen to me more than a person they never heard of. So, you know, that's my piece right there.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Shout out to Malcom. Shout out to Pastor.
We encourage you to keep walking in that truth. Please give it up for Reverend Callahan and Meek Mill.
I think the community trust with the police is broken because far too often in the community that I'm from, we see police that do not resemble of ethnic demographics like we look or are not from our communities. So we get a anger approach when we get approached by someone who doesn't look like us, who's not from where we're from, telling us what they think is the law.
So I think that the next police commissioner for this city should be someone that is willing to see the community as a partner and someone that is willing to take some dialogue with the community and neighborhoods that the police community serves and have felt victimized in the past. And I think really having that conversation with all elements of the community about the things that are important to them is something that's going to be really important for the city to be able to move forward with its police and community relations.